All right, thanks. Okay, so technically today we're starting chapter 10, but before we do that quiz, and I wanted to go through the prior 3 chapters just because they tend to go together, yet they kind of look like they're all separate, okay? So I wanted you to see them all together so that you get a feel for how they're going to work, right? Because this is a good 20 to 25% of your final, right? So, or your midterm. So this is stuff that you definitely want to know. So first things are know the characteristics and the difference between the characteristics, right? And hopefully, by looking at this, that naturally gives you this picture, right? That the perfect competitions are over here on one end, and that as you get less and less competition, you progress all the way across, right? And that makes sense, right? Because the number of sellers bears out, right? We have lots and lots of sellers. We're losing some sellers. We've lost a lot of sellers. And oh, by the way, we've killed everybody but the last one, right? And then when you get these kinds of groups that are working together in a market, your product's going to be homogeneous when there's lots and lots and lots of sellers, okay? Because there's, differentiating it when there are so many different ones, there's no reason, right? So a monopoly, you're the only one there, so of course it has to be unique. If it wasn't unique, if there were other people that were competing against you, it would be a monopoly, right? And then as you start to lose competition, you want to separate yourself from the people that are left. This is how you do it. That's why in a monopolistic competition, advertising is such a big deal. And in oligopolies, you may advertise, and again, it's one of those where, well, if there's not a whole lot of competitors, you may not advertise very much because there's no reason to. Maybe one of them is the big leader and you just kind of follow suit. Other times you may advertise because it's what drives your business, all right? And then likewise, if there are lots and lots of you, getting in and out is easy. If there are less, it's relatively easy, etc. down the line, right? Now, this is one of those unique ones, right? These guys are price takers. All of the other ones are price setters. And the key behind the thinking on this one is really what's the shape of the demand curve that any one individual sees, right? Demand for your perfect competition is perfectly elastic. That's why they're a price taker, right? Because that demand line is always a nice, flat, straight line. Right, the price and the demand and your marginal revenue, they're all the same for the individual, right? Your monopoly has its inelastic demand. Your monopolistic competition has a more elastic demand. And again, these guys are somewhere in between. The monopoly and the monopolistic competition. Again, remember, for oligopolies, I don't expect you to draw graphs. It's more know how things work. And again, if you were to graph the demand curves in this sequence, right? There's demand for a perfect competition. There's demand for a monopolistic competition. There's demand for an oligopoly. There's demand for a monopoly. What's happening to your demand curve? Steeper and steeper and steeper. And remember that this means perfectly elastic, relatively elastic, starting to get more inelastic, probably pretty good inelastic. Okay? Six is long run? Is that what I was doing? Oh, where do we profit maximize? Oh yeah, sorry. First that. How do these guys profit maximize? Well, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Yeah, across the board. For everything, marginal revenue. It's nice to have one constant, right? Makes you feel good about the world if there's always one thing that's constant. This is the one thing that's constant. Again, don't be surprised on the midterm if I ask this question in 3 different ways, right? How does an oligopolist maximize profit? Set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. And the next one will be, in a perfect competition, you will maximize profit by setting marginal revenue equal to. And again, you will pick marginal cost. It'll sound like it's a different question, but it's the same damn thing, okay? Again, this is for profit maximization. Long run profit on any of these guys? Perfect competition? Nah. Definitely not, right? If there's lots and lots of competition, in fact, anytime you see the word competition in the title of the type of market, no long-run profit, right? That's the definition of competition, is that when there is profit, people are going to come in and steal it, or share it more appropriately, right? So perfect competitions, monopolistic competitions, there is no long-run economic profit. In a monopoly, yes, definitely, right? Monopolies get to have a perfect competition, or get to have economic profit. Again, though, they tend to get regulated by government, so in theory, their profit is controlled, you know, even when, quote unquote, the government's shut down. And in an oligopoly, remember, the nice thing about oligopolies is basically you can say maybe whenever you feel like it, and you're probably safe. You do have to be able to explain it, though, right? You could say that, yes, this profit will be essentially long run because it may exist for a long period of time, or you may say that there will never be enough competition to take away the profit margin in a particular market, and I wouldn't disagree with your argument. Did I have 8 with you guys? What was 8? Ah, yes, okay. The efficiency ones, yes. This is another good one, right? In a perfect competition, you are the most efficient. And again, the reason why you're the most efficient is because of this. You don't get to set your price. The only thing that you get to muck around with is your cost, right? How much profit you make is going to be strictly driven by how low your costs go. That's why you don't waste any money on advertising or on anything else, because your profits are going to be stuck, right? So you will find the most efficient way to grow soybeans or feed corn or wheat or whatever it is that you grow. Monopolies are the least efficient because they're on the other end of the spectrum, right? If these guys are going to be most, these guys are going to be least. And again, the way you think about this is that in a monopoly, you know, they get to screw you however they like it, right? I mean, sideways, upside down, inside out, you name it, you get it that way, okay? Monopolistic competitions, there's at least competition, so there is a desire to minimize your costs, but you still have this downward sloping demand curve. So you want to be able to charge a higher price. And you could be able to charge a higher price, but in order to do it, you got to spend more on advertising. And the more you spend on advertising, the less efficient you are. So less efficient than a perfect competition. But efficient than everybody else. And then the oligopolies, right? Again, that's one of those where, not really. It depends on where you are, right? Again, if you're the type of oligopoly that has to compare goods and say, ooh, my red map is better than your blue map, or the fact that my car is advertised by M&M instead of Michael Jordan, these are the sorts of things that make your product better. Doing those things wastes a shitload of money because those people are expensive. Again, that would be the non-efficient side of things. All right. So this is where a lot of the meat and potatoes questions come from on the midterm, folks. Stuff like this. All right. And again, I mean, this little map, right? I draw it up here because I think it's a great tool to make sure you know what's going on. Once you sort of get a picture of this and what this all means and how it all ties back together into these things, you don't necessarily have to memorize this whole thing. You can kind of look at this graph and say, this leads me into knowing there's lots and lots and lots of sellers. It's a homogeneous product because they're all going to be the same price, etc. Those sorts of things. All right? Let's see. Only thing else that I will add to this, just so that you remember. Don't forget, in a perfect competition, that your demand and your marginal revenue are the same thing, and technically, it's even the price. And that this is the only spot where the marginal revenue and demand are the same. On these other guys, don't forget how to bisect an angle. Okay? Because you guys remember that I will probably be asking you at some point, where do I profit maximize, right? And not only will you say marginal revenue equals marginal cost, but you will be able to graphically show me where it will be, okay? And so if for some reason I also have on this curve a marginal cost curve, you guys will say, yes, this is where they intersect. This is my quantity that maximizes profit. Where do I go to get the price? Shoot up to the demand, right? Always get up to the demand curve to set your price, okay? Again, the classic mistake is that students get so excited they found where marginal revenue hits marginal cost that they set the price there. Generally, if you set the price at that level, the monopoly or monopolistic competition is at a loss, which is bad. Don't do that, all right? All right. So, any questions about sort of the mixture of these four types of markets? Huh? All right. How about the Chapter 9 homework? Were any of those annoying? Two maybe? Okay. Oh, the soft drink one. Soft drink one's a great one. I love the soft drink one. Did somebody steal my eraser? Oh, no, there it is. What's going to happen? Did I put it there? Wouldn't surprise me. All right, so the key to answering that question correctly is, one, remembering that, yes, monopolistic competitions do not earn economic profit, which means that price and average total cost are going to be the same. But then also remembering that your demand curve is downward sloping. So we're given this condition where the minimum point here is $1. All right, now, technically this is also where marginal cost will go through it, right? Always goes through the minimum point. I'm not even going to bother with average variable cost in this time. You should consider it in this case, but it's not important. Now, in the long run, so in the long run, this firm is not going to make an economic profit. But remember, it's a monopolistic competition. That means it needs to advertise. So is it as efficient as it can be? No. Which means it's not going to be down here at the $1 mark, right? Because its demand curve is downward sloping, right? I suppose I shouldn't have dotted it. Here's our demand line. It's relatively flat, but it's not perfectly flat, right? And so when you figure out what the price is going to be at that point, you're going to say, oh, okay, draw my marginal revenue. Here's my marginal revenue. Here's where it hits marginal cost. Here, where those two lines are tangent to each other. Tangent, of course, is this line hits this curve only at one point. That has to be higher than $1. Has to be. All right? So there has to be enough money being made from the sale of this soda such that they can waste money advertising. That's why it has to be more than $1. If it were a perfect competition, it would be exactly $1, right? Because that's what the perfect competition says, is that our nice demand curve is perfectly flat, and yes, it's going to be tangential in the long run, and no economic profit. Here, there's no economic profit, but there's still enough profit built into that no economic profit to pay for advertising. Cover your fixed costs of 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles on a sesame seed bun. But you got to sing it. Okay? So, technically, the answer to this one is more than $1. And again, that's one of those where the picture, once you remember what it means to be in long-run equilibrium, right, where there's no economic profit, so your price and your average total cost are the same, and that your demand curve being downward sloping means you got to wind up more than $1. All righty? Yeah, stop it during the quiz, may as well. Silly to tape you guys while you take a quiz. Ah, there it is.